Episode 274 of the HHH Racing Podcast is proudly sponsored by the Adelphi Racing Club.
Adelphi Racing Club, offering a truly personal thoroughbred ownership experience.
You'll have a lot of fun and excitement, and you'll meet some great people. All the folks I've met so far at Adelphi have just been super, and I've picked up some new friendships along the way.
We're not just a syndicate, and our members aren't just investors, we are partners. Contact us online to get a taste of the Adelphi difference.
And now let's start episode 274 of the HHH Racing Podcast.
If you have not followed his Triple H Horse Racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.
Good evening and welcome to episode 274 of the HHH Racing Podcast. It is time for Saratoga. We are so excited that you are here. We're going to be discussing the meet preview for Saratoga briefly, and then get into race 1 and the late pick 4 on opening day this Thursday with a fantastic special guest, Mr. Nick Tammaro. We can't wait to start the show. Thank you much for joining us tonight. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button on the bottom right hand side of the screen. We really need your help. Please hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything. We won't send you any crazy emails. All that does, it sends the YouTube algorithm, the robot, to our YouTube channel. So we greatly appreciate that. Also, smash that like button. And I mean smash that like button, that thumbs up button. We'd appreciate that as well. And also hit that notification bell, because we have so much content coming up on this podcast this week and throughout Saratoga. You don't want to miss anything. So please hit that notification bell as well. You can follow me on Twitter. You can see on my name tag at HKravitz, on the scroll at the bottom of the screen, hkravitzhorse@gmail.com. Also scrolling at the bottom of the screen, we have plenty of shows. You can check them all out again on our YouTube channel. Just type in HHH Racing Podcast on YouTube and we'll get you there as well. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. Power Picks. We have brand new Power Picks. You can see through Patreon below the screen are the regular Power Picks. We also have Saratoga Power Picks that I'm going to wait for our co-hosts. They're going to come on here in a moment to talk about. You can see right there, we have Saratoga only Power Picks for the weekends, Friday through Sunday at the spa. Just go to our website. I'll show you more detail how to sign up for that. We already have many people sign up for the special Saratoga only Power Picks website, hhhracingpodcast.com. All right, let me go ahead and bring on my co-host, and then we'll bring on our guest for tonight very quickly. First, from the East Coast of Maryland, Mr. Pete Visco, and also from the wonderful Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Mr. Paul Halloran. Guys, as I bring on our background here, how are we doing tonight?
It's Christmas Eve.
Sure is. Pete, you ready for Saratoga?
Yeah, it's a track. It's got races. You can spend money, so it sounds good to me.
All right, pretty casual. Guys, let's go right into our Power Picks here, because it's very exciting. We have a lot of people that are interested in our Saratoga Power Picks. Pete, I'll let you do the honors. We've talked about this a little bit already, but again, here is our website, and tell people what to do if they are interested in our Saratoga only Power Picks.
Yeah, so if you see right at the top of the screen there, if you just click that, it takes you to the Power Picks page, or you can go right to the Power Picks page. If you could scroll down just a touch there, Howard, we can see So for any Power Picks current subscriber, so if you currently, as of today, get the Power Picks, the regular Power Picks through Patreon, then you would click on either this one for the individual weekend, which is this upcoming weekend, or the full meet Power Picks. And if you're a current subscriber, you get a discount. I think it's basically a free weekend if you do the individual or the whole meet Power Picks. And then if you're a non-Power Pick subscriber, you get the same thing. You get the individual weekend Power Picks and the full meet. And I guess the important thing, Howard, is if anyone wants the full meet Power Picks, you have to get it by this Thursday at midnight. Otherwise, once we get into this weekend, we're not offering, if I'm correct, we're not offering the full meet ones at that point. It'll just be weekend. Is that correct?
We actually are going to offer the full meet up through next Thursday.
Oh, up to next week.
They're just going to lose out on the discount of the one free weekend because
I got you. Okay.
One weekend will already be gone. So they can sign up for the full meet Power Picks up through a week from this Thursday midnight. But of course, the individual weekend subscriptions they can do throughout the meet as long as they do it Monday through Thursday midnight of the week that they want the picks on for the weekend.
Exactly. Yep.
So,
sounds good. And then you just click that. You have to be, the important thing is you have to be a PayPal user. Even though there's little pictures of credit cards there was a little confusion, but you can only pay through PayPal. But if you just click on it, it'll take you right to your account. And then Howard will get a notification and he'll add you to the distribution lists.
Yeah, so please make sure you sign up for, again, the weekend only Power Picks. You can sign up any Monday through Thursday before midnight. If you want the full meet Saratoga Power Picks, which is Friday through Sunday. Again, the Power Picks are only Friday through Sundays. When I say full meet, I mean every weekend. You can sign up for that until a week from this Thursday midnight. After that, we are going to close it. And then we also, again, really exciting, guys, this Saturday, myself, Matt Miller, Kyle Roscoe, and I'm pretty sure Charlie Freeman will all be at the Crestwood OTB outside Chicago. Very exciting for our pool party. We'll be there live, guys, covering the last 4 races at Saratoga. They give us $1,000 to spend. Everyone there has a chance to win real money. You get appetizers, etc. You do have to be there in person to be eligible for that. But we're very excited, guys, to once again, and we're going to be live here on the broadcast as well for that. So we got a lot.
That flyer is on the website as well, in case anyone in the Chicago area is curious about the details. Sorry, Howard, that is sitting on there as well if you want to check it out later.
Yeah, we're really excited, and we got plenty of shows, guys. We don't have time to talk about, but go to our website at Pete's done a great job, or go to our YouTube channel for shows. All right, guys, let's bring on our fantastic special guest. He's been on before, so let's go ahead and discuss Saratoga, and he's the perfect person to do it. He is the racetrack announcer at Sam Houston Racecourse, the Moorline maker at Keeneland. He also does an unbelievable job at In the Money Media, our good friends in Money Media, especially when PTF is out of town gallivanting throughout Europe. Friend of the show, excellent handicapper, great guy, Mr. Nick Tammaro. Nick, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for having me. I think it's been a year since I was on. I think it was last opening week at Saratoga, so it feels like a tradition now.
Yeah, actually, we had you on in the fall for Keeneland to talk about morning line.
I did. You did. That's right.
As well.
Yeah,
so it's been way too long, but I know you're a busy guy. And last time Paul and I saw you in person, this guy in the bottom left won the Grade 1 Gamble, of which you were there, and he came in the last second and won the Grade 1 Gamble. And Nick also had the pleasure of meeting for the first time your wonderful wife and daughter. So that was quite the special weekend for a lot of reasons.
Yes, very much so. Never a bad time at Keeneland. It was good seeing all of you. I hadn't met Paul in person, so he said that I might have been his good luck charm. I don't know about that.
1 for 1, Nick.
1 for 1, right. Yeah, we'll have to see.
We'll see you at the BCBC, Nick.
That's right, exactly. We put that theory to the test.
Listen, exciting, and hopefully NHC as well, which we're going to touch on very briefly for, I think we all know why, but always great to spend time with a large group. Nick, let's get right into it. I was going to do a full, last year we did a full hour previewing Saratoga. There's plenty of previews out there people can watch. I chose just to do a very brief preview tonight along with the card on Thursday. So a few quick questions. I watched last year's show, make sure we covered everything. Not much has changed, but there are a few topics I want to cover, guys. And you're going to see banners at the bottom of the screen. Nick, you're already aware of what we're going to talk about. Again, very briefly, maybe 30 seconds to a minute on each one. First of all, for Saratoga 2023, some trainers, jockeys to watch, any newcomers or names that people are going to see in the program that you think people should be aware of?
I don't think there's going to be any newcomers. The colony is going to pretty much be the same as it's been recently. Florent Giroux is going to be more of a regular. He has a new agent now. He's with John Panigat, so he'll get some more regular mounts. He kind of came up on the weekends and stuff in the past. Obviously, he'll still have some Brad Cox mounts. So I don't really think anybody's going to be – there are really no new additions to the New York colony. Obviously, Luis Saez rode in Kentucky so far this summer and did extremely well at both Churchill and Ellis, and very quietly went 0 for 27 at Belmont during that period of time as well. So, Saez is a guy who's ridden very well notoriously at Saratoga. I would assume he'll do well. Belmont, for some reason, is just – it's like his kryptonite. He just does not ride Belmont well. Maybe it's because it's more of a sit and wait type of dirt track, and he's more of a go type of jockey. So it's really been remarkable how, he's had 12 or 14% Belmont meets and then gone up to Saratoga and done well. So I would assume he'll do better. Kieran McLaughlin's going to get him on a lot of live horses. Trainer wise, one guy who I have to say, and I wanted to pull up some stats, but I didn't because the meets were separated. I would say that Mike Maker is a guy you want to watch really closely the first 2 weeks. He got off to very quick starts in 2021 and 22. So it's obvious that Maker gets this condition book as early as possible. And, he's looking at who he can go out and win within the first couple of weeks. So obviously the big names, Chad Brown, Todd Pletcher. The one thing I would say about both of them is that they're going to go through a prolonged losing streak at some point. They're going to struggle because the racing is that hard. Just recognize when they are that you're probably going to get value elsewhere because the public does really hone in on them quite significantly.
I'd also like to mention David Donk, who I think, points to this meet. He's had a bit of a quiet year, but he points to this meet, and 007 will be out there for sure. We got a lot
Nobody
of people.
points to it more than him, right? He's stabled there. Yeah. Bond is
for
big,
sure.
Big at Saratoga.
Comments on the bottom of the screen. Nikki the Boss, fellow Astros fan and Super Derby friend Glenn Parker is here. We got a lot. We got Nick Feldman, loves everyone. We got a lot of people here for the show. Charles B, thank you very much. Nice call, Howard Pete, on that 6th Saturday. I tipped out Jakey Byrne on the show. Nick Tammaro, who won at 12-1 and did it well. I know, Pete, I sort of feel bad because I know you needed the first-time starter Weaver for something. So I hate when we're going against each other.
I know Nick didn't love the way that race went too from some Twitter comments, but I was in a feeder, Nick, and I needed the 12 to win the race to move on to a NHC qualifier on Sunday. And when the 12 couldn't get there, and I was like, just run straight, and I think he gets by. And I know you had the horse third, right?
I needed 12-1 to win the NYRA contest and get another.
Oh, okay.
So, and I bet the 12 to win. So, yeah.
Nick, we didn't talk it all Saturday, but based on the contest, because I played it well, I'm pretty sure you did have one of your all-in entries, and correct me if I'm wrong, charge it over, the 3-horse in the Suburban, correct?
Yep. Yeah, that was nice. A cold exact. I should have played it with both entries, but the other one I played 4-3-1, 4-1-3, a little bit of 3-4. So I really should have my best opinion on the whole card was charge it over Clapton cold. So I should have tried to maximize that as much as possible, but because the second half of the card didn't go quite as well for me, including the last. Yeah, I could have used it. I was bummed.
I saw the leaderboard. I'm like, where's Nick? And it just kept going. I know that feeling when you crush early and your number goes down. Yeah. And it was crazy. I don't want to get in the NYRA contest. We got a lot of things to talk about. But, boy, were there a lot of low totals on Saturday. It was unbelievable.
There were a lot. It was all. It's a top-loaded contest, right? You're buying in for 300. You're trying to win a BCBC spot. There's no. I could have just finished second. I would have taken the cash, obviously, but I ended up trying to win, and so I know no harm in that. There's 7 more of them coming up at Saratoga, including $1,000 one on August 12th.
There you go. If you're a contest player, look out for Nick Tammaro. Paul, isn't Raylu riding full-time, by the way? We didn't mention him.
Raylu was there opening day, but he is back to Ellis for Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
There you go.
So I think he's going to pretty much go where where the action is, so to speak. I think Colonial changing their schedule is going to hurt him because he would have been a guy to ship down to Colonial on Monday and Tuesday, and that's another topic for another day. That's just another tremendous decision by CDI to go head-to-head with Saratoga starting on opening day. But so I have not spoken with him, but I do. He's on my jockey watch, and I know he is opening day at Saratoga and then the next 3 days at Ellis. So I think he's going to pretty much be back and forth.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he's doing Wednesday, Thursdays at Saratoga.
Yeah, that makes sense,
okay.
Nick. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he will be full-time there at some point, but we'll see. I don't mean this year. I mean in the coming years. Nick, stake schedule, minor changes, I believe, to the stake schedule, correct?
Yeah, nothing too significant. I know some big stakes on Travers Day got moved to Friday. The Personal Ensign, which, even you, Howard, probably don't remember when the Personal Ensign was run on Friday, but I know
I do not.
Paul and Pete probably do. The Personal Ensign was run on Friday for years. It was actually a staple on Friday. And I remember Beautiful Pleasure exacting some revenge on Heritage of Gold in the Personal Ensign in 1999, I want to say. 99 or 2000, something like that. It was on Friday. I was actually at school, and I had to run and call my dad and ask who won. So that was a minor change. Otherwise, the Forbidden Apple was renamed the Kelso. Same exact race, basically. Prep for the 4-Star Dave. That'll be run this weekend. Fingers crossed for good weather. But, yeah, you can count on a grade 1 every Saturday, multiple grade 1s on a couple of those cards, including the Whitney, and the closing weekend as well. You'll have the Jockey Club Gold Cup, and there's another grade 1 on that card that escapes my mind right now. But there's multiple grade 1s that weekend. Of course, Travers Day will be big. Alabama, it's Saratoga, so no shortage of great stakes.
One change, how it is for those of us who follow the New York Breds. The New York Bred Showcase Day has been on Friday before the Travers the last several years. It is now moved to Sunday, the day after the Travers.
Okay.
And that kind of goes hand in hand with the Personal Ensign going to Friday to anchor that Friday card. That whole weekend's great, but that Friday card was all New York Breds in about 6 or 8 stakes the last several years. So.
It had been probably 10 years, 8 or 10 years or so. And I think the thought process there was that card is going to garner some attention on Sunday more so than a sort of stakeless, mundane Sunday card. And I was there on Sunday after Travers last year. It thinned out quite a bit. So
sure did.
The New York Breds have a decent enough following. I think it'll actually be pretty fun as a Sunday card.
For sure. Nick Feldman, by the way. Nick, how you doing? He's going to be at Whitney Day. I'll be there as well. Actually, quick announcement. Not that people aren't care too much, but my schedule in terms of being at Saratoga has changed slightly for good reason. I'll tell everyone that in just a second. Nick, by the way, I really appreciate the fact that you think that I'm younger than Pete Visco. We're actually about the same age, so I'm actually older than I look, Nick.
Well, you're older than me. I know that, but
I'll be 52 next month.
Yeah, I'll be 40 in December, which is bad enough. But
wow,
you've not been a racing fan for more than what, like 10 or 15 years?
No, I've actually been a racing fan for like 30 years. I just haven't been a contest player for the last few years. But no, I've been a racing fan since I was a late teenager.
Well, you come from a great racing city. It's just a shame that it's where it is now,
Well, yeah, we'll get to that in just a second. But I'm not going to let those 3 knuckleheads
at risk of me losing a job,
Chicago
I'll probably avoid that topic altogether.
Handicappers. Well, we'll bring it up for just a minute. I think we have to because of your great contest experience. First Cup sires. 2-year-olds under the maybe under the radar sires. We all know there's a lot of baby races, Nick, going on, of course, in Saratoga. Army Mule.
That was the first one that jumped into my head.
Sorry, Pete.
No, I was going to say that's the first one because he's been great on all surfaces, all distances. It doesn't really matter. It's crazy.
It's cool to see some new names in the sire crop that are going to be firing at Saratoga, Nick.
Yeah, always fun. There's one that's in the second on Thursday that's by Audible. He is a new stallion. Clearly now is a new stallion in there as well. Obviously not a commercial one. Those are as far as horses go that are actually entered. But I'll tell you a horse that just seems like every horse that he sires is running is Good Magic. I mean, including Mage, of course, but the Good Magics are very good first time out. And he had a really nice looking winner for Bill Mott last Saturday in the opener. So, yeah, the other thing about these races is that there's more information readily available now about them than we've seen in quite some time. Between the great news for horse players, too, that XBTV is going to be able to show workouts at both Saratoga and Del Mar. So, in addition to maybe buying the workout report or following along with some of the good info that's out there, you can also watch the workouts yourself. And I think that's no longer kind of a cottage industry, but it's something that now everybody's getting a little more tuned into. So that'll be a lot of fun. I can't think of a freshman stallion that I'm particularly excited about above all, but
how about Matoli's seems to be running, Nick? He had a winner today.
Yeah.
How that race at Horseshoe, Indianapolis, we watched.
Yeah.
Seems like he's coming onto the scene.
You would imagine that his progeny are going to be fast, right? I mean, he was awfully fast himself.
Yeah, listen, you have to. We're going to, on our Saratoga Power Picks, Pete, we're going to give as many pedigree stats as we can, because we know a lot of people either don't have the time, don't understand, etc. So we're going to try to do that very much, guys, with our Saratoga Power Picks. Is when we give out stats, a lot of them will be on 2-year-olds, because Nick, obviously there are some trainers that point to this meet specifically almost for the 2-year-olds as well. There are so many. If you want to win this meet and you're a trainer, you have to be good with the 2-year-olds.
Yeah, it helps for sure. Obviously Todd Pletcher is going to dominate a lot of the conversation there.
Yeah.
Matoli's best offspring so far is Vivi's Dream, who finished second in the debutante at Ellis a couple of weeks ago. I knew he had a stakes horse. I cheated and looked it up just now. But so yeah, you're going to want to. I mean, what are you going to want to do? You're going to want to read the DRF Clocker report if you can get it, right? If you want to buy it, it's really worth it, especially for some of the big Saturday races. One of the good resources as well is going to be to listen to Steve Bick. Steve's going to have Mike Welsh on pretty frequently, and they're going to talk about good 2-year-olds. And then, of course, the board is going to give you a lot of indication as well. The other thing I would say, and this has been true of the last few years, the public's fascination with Chad Brown in 2-year-old turf races has actually created some value in a lot of cases. So don't just default to Chad. He's not winning these at any higher percentage than he wins in general. So that's actually something where I think you can create value by just almost categorically taking a stand against those horses. I mean, with 2-year-old first-time starters at Saratoga over the last 5 years, and that of course includes the pandemic year of 2020, he's 22%, right? And he had a total of 3 winners in that category last year. One of them was in a sprint. So, I mean, he was about 3 for 20 last year in these. Those aren't Chad numbers. So, and I mean, the ROI was awful. So it's something that you want to keep in your hip pocket.
I think that's a great point. And the last thing, real quick, most people are familiar with the track configurations. They added the mile shoot. Do you have any particular trend or things that maybe the inexperienced handicappers should be looking out for? Whether you want to be in the inner post, on the inner turf, or just anything that comes to mind right away, Nick, that you would expound to some less experienced handicappers.
Outside posts on the inner turf, especially at a mile or rough. Inside post sprinting on the dirt can be difficult. Be very careful taking horses that come from deep in the pack. Unless you notice there might be a day where the rail is bad or something. It's generally been a pretty difficult place to make up a lot of ground. I would even go so far as to say it's probably the most speed favoring dirt track in New York. So those are the things I think that would stick out the most. As far as the turf sprints go, you actually generally see horses do better from off the pace when the rail is out than I think when the rail is down. The rail's not down on the Mellon very much. So it's only down, I think, for a couple of weeks, really towards the end of the meet, maybe Travers week and closing week. So those are kind of the ones. The biggest bias that I've uncovered over the years has been when the rail comes down on the inner turf. When the rail comes down on the inner turf, the inside paths are gold. It's been that case for years now, going back as at least 5 years, because they start with the rail at 9, they work it out, then they take it down 4-star Dave week, and that's generally been the week where it's been very advantageous to save ground. So something to keep in mind.
Pete, we've certainly seen a lot of wire jobs on the turf, and we talked about this as one of our New Year's resolutions, that to make sure you at least have one speed horse and on the turf going 2 turns.
Inner especially, yep.
You got to
Yeah.
do that, right, Pete? You got to.
Well, this is probably why I'm never as excited about Saratoga as every other person, because I always forget that rule, and then I wind up just getting pissed off when the speed horse beats me and I don't have it. So, maybe if I change that and smarten up a little bit, I'll be a little happier this year.
Last thing, and I don't want to dive very deep in this, but I got to ask you, Nick. You already brought up, we're not going to go through the whole controversy. That's a whole other show. You and I are going to benefit financially slightly, but I think we would take the few $100s that we're going to benefit from and almost rather have it not happen. I'm just going to leave the floor open to you on anything that you want to say. I'm sure you've talked about it some other shows, and I apologize if I haven't heard you on other shows discuss this, but everyone knows what happened. 3 people in DQ. They were all from Chicago, unfortunately, for collusion. The only thing I'll say is I've heard some people say it's hard to define collusion. It's subjective. I would say yes and yes. I would also say you know it when you see it, and this was as obvious as it comes if you are a contest player and understand how these contests work.
Yeah, it's funny. Actually, Jonathan and I were on a podcast, and we were starting to talk about it. And we were mainly kidding, and then my phone rang, and it was probably fortuitous because I don't think he and I were going to say anything productive on it. One thing I will say that I could say in jest, and I also mean it, is that if what those guys did is the same as what he did in terms of a ban, that's pretty tough to believe. But hey, that's the decision that was made by the NTRA, and it's their show. So, things like this just really take away from the spirit of the event. And one of the things about that event is that it's really treated as sacred by the people who run it and by the majority of the field. There's a sense of accomplishment simply by getting there. Paul, you're going to experience that next March, and Howard did this March and did well, which, makes it 1,000 times more fun. It's fun anyway, right? I mean, I've had fun in every single one I've gone to. I've only done well a couple of times, but so it's unfortunate to see that anybody would do anything that obviously breaks the rules and or takes away from the spirit of the event, because it's meant to be a good, hard competition. It's a very difficult tournament. It's very hard to do well in it. So these guys obviously had a strategy that they employed, I will admit, rather flawlessly, but it also was against the rules. So they deserve a punishment. I would have banned them for life. I would have supported banning them for life. I don't really know if they would have shed a tear about that. They're guys that really haven't been all that active on the tournament circuit, but you wouldn't have ever had to worry about them again. I think the best thing that comes of it is that, and this is a crude comparison, but there was an old joke that the best time to buy stock in an airline was after a plane crash, right? Because it meant that they were going to be as safe as possible. So now the NHC is going to be audited and watched better than it's ever been audited or watched before. So I think if you're worried about credibility of the tournament or of the spirit of the event itself, it's never going to be more important than next March. So I would say, if you're somebody that, and obviously there's a lot of people out there with varying opinions, especially on social media, I wouldn't stay away from the event because you think it's not on the up and up. There are plenty of reasons to stay away from the event, believe me, and I've heard them and I understand them, but that to me is just not one of them.
Hey, what? Howard, I was going to say, go ahead, you go first. I was going to ask a question, a follow-up on that.
No, go ahead, Pete, real quick. No, we'll
Since I'm not someone who's participated, but I'm curious because, and not to get too in-depth, but collusion seems oddly difficult to prove. In this case, it was pretty widespread, and there were a lot of picks that were similar. But would you have to expect that you would almost draw the line and say, oh, okay, we have a certain percentage that are similar? Because what if you just have, a third of the picks are the same, whereas these guys had, I forget what the number was pretty high. Like, would there be some sort of threshold where you would almost say you have to meet something to really prove it? Or would it be super subjective where it's just like you said, we sort of know it when we see it, but then it gets a little murky there, I feel like.
Go ahead, Nick. I'll let you answer that.
I mean, so I would look after the first day and see if anybody out of 18 picks was probably above 12 or so. I mean, if 2/3 of your picks match, that's a lot. Yeah. More than that is getting to be a whole lot. And let's say in one of the circumstances, I believe that 2 of these guys had identical optional plays, which that's really hard to believe. I mean, we're talking about a pool of, 40 races or so. It's very hard to believe that they would choose the exact same ones. I would not say anything to them after the first day. I would just have somebody watch them on the second day and see the process of going and putting the plays in and things like that. I really don't think that's that difficult to do. But yeah, so it's, you know, the normal, based on some of the data I've seen, the normal amount that 2 entries could match in terms of the same picks is probably somewhere around 12 out of 36, 14 out of 36, maybe at most. I mean, these guys were in the high 20s, low 30s. Yeah. So it's and ironically, I mean, the biggest case of collusion that we had ever seen in a major tournament prior to this was in the BCBC, where it's a hell of a lot easier to collude. And prior to there being a lot of monitoring of that, it was even easier. So it's you know, it's a little surprising that it went that way, but at the same time, it's good that it ended up happening the way it did, and that now everybody's hip to it. And obviously, the auditing process will look a little different next year, and it'll look different for the better.
Well, not only that, Pete, a lot of it's when the picks are made. If you make a lot of similar picks early, and then when it counts, you're all branching off, that looks very weird, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why are you all of a sudden doing, you know, why are you changing your strategy all of a sudden? Well, obviously, so someone will hit something, right? It's just, again, we can get in the weeds and talk about it for 2 hours, but the timing of the picks to me also means something. But anyway, what is great about NHC, Nick, which I don't know if you're going to be there next year. I hope you will. I think you've already qualified. Are the dinners at night with Matt Miller and whatnot. So we'll be hitting that again. I think Paul Hallen will be joining us for sure with some of those dinners in Vegas. All right, guys, let's get into Saratoga. We're going to talk about 5 races. We're going to talk about race 1, and then these are all races on Thursday. Race 1, and then we're going to skip to the late pick 4. We often do pick 5s on the show, Nick, but I didn't want to do more than 5 races based on time. Let's get this out in the open right now, guys. The weather in Saratoga, here's the deal, okay? Some days are going to be beautiful. Some days are going to be all rain, and about 75% of the days will be chance of scattered thunderstorms. Who the F knows what's going to happen, Nick? That's how you can basically sum up the weather at the Adirondacks, right?
Yeah, exactly. And some days you might get a little bit of all of it, right? So I think if you work yourself into a frenzy about the weather, you're just going to end up very frustrated. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. Like you said, there are going to be days where it rains. There are going to be days where it's dry. So don't go too crazy. And yes, right now the forecast is for rain. There's obviously been a tremendous amount of rain in the Northeast, especially up towards Saratoga and into Vermont. So hopefully it dries out. And if not, then we'll be dealing with a wet track.
There you go. And just deal with it and move on. The first race of the Saratoga meet is at its traditional starting time, about 1:10 Eastern. This is, of course, Thursday. It's a field of 7. They are going a mile and 1/8. Always start in front of the stands. These are for the girls. It's an optional 50 N1X. Morning favorite is the number 5, a New York bred Boston Bay for Linda and Jose Ortiz, a combination we're going to see quite a bit, Nick, up at Saratoga. And 3 of us are going with that horse. And you, my friend, are the only one that is not. You're going with the Louisiana bred Sabra Tough for Dallas Stewart and Raylu, a closer in a race that in theory has a lot of early speed.
Yeah, and I wonder truthfully if coming out of a couple of, well, I guess Ellis at a mile is about 1.5 turns, but I wonder if Raylu might try and keep this filly a little bit closer early. It is difficult to fall too far back at 1 1/8 and be effective. I mean, she did wire her debut win going all the way back to about 13 months ago. I liked this horse on the drop. I feel like this is a pretty substantial drop in class. It is also a situation where she's getting Lasix for the first time. Limited sample, modest win percentage, but Dallas Stewart has a positive ROI first-time Lasix with non-first-time starters. So I felt like that was at least something I could kind of get behind. So I wanted to try a bit of an alternative. Boston Bay is a mare that ran extremely well at Saratoga last year, and we were kind of joking subsequently about when she would run back to that. And she eventually did, and she's actually run well in her last 5 starts, one of which came for Antonio Arriaga, a couple for Charlie Baker, and now a couple for Linda Rice, including that big win last time out. She's very dangerous. I mean, she's the horse to beat. To me, there's no doubt about that. But I thought Sabra Tough was at least a decent enough alternative at a price.
Nick, any concerns with the distance with Bustin Bay by Bustin Stones? A little sprinty on the male side. Obviously, the dam side, there's some more distance, but she's never gone a mile and an eighth. And we didn't really talk about 2 turns on the dirt. That is a situation in general where speed plays better than most people think as well.
Oh yeah, yeah, and a lot of these races become kind of a battle of attrition. I mean, they can get very deliberate in the final furlong, furlong and a half. So yeah, I would say I'd be a little concerned. I mean, one thing I have to admit about Linda, and Linda over time was, I mean, 5+ years ago, Linda was an auto toss in route races. She just did not have the right horses to go long, and it seemed like they never won. And her barn has been totally reinvented. I mean, she is really, I was saying this actually to Jonathan on the podcast we did today, people who think that Linda is a turf sprint maven that has, a lot of New York breds. I mean, she has a lot of New York breds, but she's got a hell of a lot more dirt horses than she ever did. She's been a very astute claimer. And obviously this horse is one of them. Taken for 45, came right back two races later with a win. And, if she wins here, I think the purse is $150,000.
Purses are unbelievable.
So, yeah, it's insane. I mean, it's a great claim.
Yeah, 149.5. Pete and Paul, real quick, any thoughts? We all are going with the 5. Either one of you want to have any other comments on this horse owned by Winning Move stable?
Go ahead, Paul.
No, I was just going to say I have mixed emotions. Nick touched on it. I think you could fall into a trap in looking at these races saying, well, mile and an eighth, someone's got to come from behind. And it does often play out where, it's the dirt version of the merry-go-round. I do think I was kind of thinking the same way. I put the 7 second thinking because he's run the mile. She's run the mile and an eighth. There we go.
There we go. Nick, if you got a beverage around, anytime there's a misgender, we have a beverage on the show.
And I get it out of the way early, Nick,
usually
time.
You do. Paul's almost the first one usually.
But anyway, so I do think, though, there, as Nick touched on, there's certainly a chance just this 5 leads them all the way around. I think, though, if it's going to be one from behind, I wanted to have the 7 in there. He's bitonalist. He's run the mile and an eighth. I did it again. She's run the mile and an eighth twice. So either way, it's the first race of a wonderful meet. So if you lose, there's plenty more to come after that.
Paul, I will say real quick, I do have a slight history with number 7. I did talk to Miguel Clement personally before Ocean Gateway made her debut. They were very high in this horse, Nick. They really thought she had a nice future. She hasn't really put it together yet. But I think the distance, by tonalist will be great. I would toss out that Pimlico race. I wouldn't be surprised if this one rebounds. But I think she does have to set up a little bit on the buyers, Nick and Pete. Don't you think?
Yeah. No, I agree. Go ahead, Nick. You can take that one.
Yeah, I was surprised with how well she ran 2 back. I felt like distance would be her friend. She ran a little bit better than I thought. But boy, she was bad last time. And so I just don't know. I don't know what that could be. I will also comment that Christophe Clement had a very slow Belmont meet, and he's a guy who has started off this meet very quickly in the past. Obviously, his Miguel spends a lot of time with the horses up at Saratoga, so I wouldn't be shocked if he reverses that a little bit. But 16% with a $1.18 ROI at the recently concluded Belmont meet. Those are not Christophe Clement-like numbers at all.
No.
The only thing with the 7 that scares you a little is ran the best race on the slop. It was an off the turf, and it was only a 4-horse field.
Right.
So all those factors make it as that sort of fool's gold. You're not really sure you want to see it again, maybe.
Pete, real quick on the 1. I think the 1's could take a lot of money. I watched the first start. I don't know your opinions, Nick or Pete. I was not impressed. I mean, it was very grindy. It was a small field. She got to the outside eventually. Maybe she's going to improve with the distance. I know she's got the rail clear. This is the kind of Chad Brown. We've talked about this, Nick, many times, even though this is a dirt race. I'm not a fan of this horse. I'm going to let this horse beat me in general. Pete, you've got her second, though, so you disagree.
Well, no, I just think I didn't love the field that much, and I put her in second because I thought she could maybe get a good trip from the rail. I don't think there's I didn't look at this as much of a speed race. I was a little confused as to who would actually be the speed. I mean, I like the 5, but I think the 5 can sit off if necessary. So I thought maybe the 1 just works out a decent trip and is decent enough, and there's an improvement off that first race. I did have some, I'm not going to get into them because they're really super stupid granular stats, but there was some Chad Brown bad stats in second career starts with the maiden winners on dirt. So there was a bunch of stuff at this level, and I was like, I don't love it, but I don't really love anybody in the race. So I thought the rail might help this horse out, and that would be enough just to sort of keep her in contention.
I think it's a fair point. Let's move on to race 7. This is the start of the pick 4, guys. And it starts at about 4:34 Eastern Standard Time. It's a starter allowance, 50,000. Fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up. They're going 7 furlongs. It's a huge field. What a surprise. Field of 11 here. With the morning line favorite is who? The number 10, Obrigada, for, there it is, Rice and Ortiz. Let me bring up the banners. Whoops, I had the banners up. And they're scrolling on the bottom of the screen. Nick, we're going to always have you go first. We do have the 5 scattered a little bit, but you are the one that has the 5, I believe, on top. Yes. Sa Foradada, Dutro, and Irad.
Yeah, and this is just a classic cutback play for me. This is a filly a mare, I should say, who went a mile and a 16th last time. And, generally I wouldn't go anywhere near horses like this who essentially have perfect trips and have dead aim on the leader and come up short, unless it was a circumstance where something was changing. And 2 things are changing here, really 3 things. One of them is that this horse is going from Jamie Torres to Irad. I don't want to beat up on Jamie Torres because that really wasn't much of a situation where he did anything wrong, but this is still Irad Ortiz Jr. getting on board. Dutro's adding blinkers and they're cutting back. So this is a mare who's likely to just be taken back to make one run. It looks like there's a decent enough amount of speed to set up that run. And so she's just a horse right now that's going to be able to settle and make one run. She's got a little bit of a refuser's look to her. I don't love that she's found a way to lose a couple of races that she really did have dead aim on the leaders, but I think this is just a good circumstance for her in terms of a potential race dynamics. And it's going to be maybe a rare opportunity pending scratches where you'll get Dutro and Irad at least a square price.
Nick, I totally agree, and I love turnbacks, and especially at Saratoga, and we can talk on hours about which distance turning back to what distance, but the 7 furlongs at Saratoga for some reason seems a little more demanding, Nick, than your normal 7 furlongs at other places. I don't really know why. Maybe it's just the competition makes it feel that way, but I absolutely love the turnback. You've got the 10-second, which I like as well. That is actually, I think that's I have him 3rd, but other people, is it Paul has the source on top. Obrigada for Linda off the claim, very dangerous.
Hey, Howard, real quick. I actually have the 5 in the first spot instead of the 7. I don't know if you just updated for the recording. Okay. Yeah.
Sorry. Any quick thoughts on the 10, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, look, with all due respect to Jason Barkley, this is supposed to be a move-up claim, right? I mean, Linda's supposed to do better with Obrigada than anybody did, and Obrigada got a 79 buyer last time, so I mean, she doesn't really need to improve much at all. This filly feels like a Saratoga type of horse, at least on the main track. She's going to be forwardly placed. She comes out of an improved effort. She has a very positive thoroughgraph pattern as well. So, I mean, plenty to like. I don't see much argument with anybody who wants to really not necessarily take a stand with her, but at least give her some pretty serious consideration. Linda's numbers off the claim, especially in this year, have been very, very good. I mean, she's bumping up on 30% and hitting it around a $2 ROI, and that's a hard thing to do, especially when you run a lot of horses that are relatively short prices. So I think the one thing we know about this race, other than assuming that Safaradada is going to really benefit from a cutback, which I think she will, is that if Obrigada runs her last race, it's going to be hard to imagine she's out of the exacta.
Yeah, she's going to be really tough, and I like outside speed. It's why I'm going with the 9 Condiment Girl. I have to admit, she's got to run back to her last race, and maybe even better. I do like she's gone a little bit further, though, than Obrigada. Obrigada's been going 6 and 6.5, Nick. And although I don't like that Condiment Girl's inside another speed, she has one going a little bit longer. Maybe the upside isn't there, but I do like the fact she's gone longer. Diodoro is so damn dangerous anywhere. And so I'm hoping, and I like Torres. It's been interesting, speaking of new jockeys, it's been interesting how Christian Torres does, because he had a hell of a meet at Oaklawn this year. So we'll see how he does. Pete and Paul, any quick thoughts on this race from either one of you? Any horse you choose, now we're going to move on.
Yeah, no, I just thought it's interesting to see Linda going into Kentucky and poaching. There's another horse on the card, and I did see some social media. Apparently, not everyone took that kindly to that move, that because she doesn't really run in Kentucky. But there's this horse, and interestingly, she claimed this horse for herself, unless she claimed it for someone else and it fell through. It's listed as she is the owner, and I think there's another horse on the card. It's either today or Friday, a Thursday or Friday in the same. So I did watch that replay, and I think Nick hit on it. You know, this horse kind of grinded away. It looked to me like the type of race that the extra furlong will benefit him. You know, I don't think he's going to have any big flashy run, but I think if he is forwardly placed, if she is forwardly placed, that she'll have a shot at it in the stretch at some point. And I would agree with Nick that if she runs that race, she should be certainly on the board, if not in the top two.
Yeah, real
Pete,
quick.
We covered your horses. Any quick final thoughts, Pete? We covered your
I was just
horses.
going to say, Nick mentioned that she's been good first after the claim. I saw a stat, first after the claim on dirt in the past year, when she makes a jockey switch to Jose, small sample size, but 7 out of 15 wins, 11 out of 15 in the money. So when you put Jose on her horses first after it, they've been performing pretty well. So it's worth taking a shot.
Good point, Pete. Let's move on to race 8, guys. Race 8 is a starter allowance, 51 mile on the turf. I believe this is it's on the Mellon turf course. It's a field of 12. There's also eligibles again. We don't have the weather. Actually, those are AEs, not MTOs. So the 13 or 14 could get in. But anyway, it's a field of 12. If it comes off the turf, who knows? You got to do your own handicapping there. The Moylan Fair is the number 4, My Sea Cottage for Cassie and Irad. And as I bring up the banners here, as you can see on the screen, Nick and I are actually similar. We're both 4-5-5-4. You're going with Kingfish Stevens for Carlos Martin Castellano, Nick. This is a horse that I liked last time, and just the trip didn't work out. But this is a talented 3-year-old.
Yeah, maybe I'm giving this horse a little too much leeway for his last start, but I thought he did kind of a sneaky bit of running in the middle of the race, and he broke from the 12 on the Widener turf course when the rail had been taken down. There was no evidence that week that it was a big advantage to be inside, but this horse did, understandably lose some ground all the way around there, and it was a fast pace that he moved right into, which is not the way you want to distribute your energy for the most part. I'll tell you the other thing that was wild about this was this horse took a ton of money because Timbuktu ended up taking a lot of money, not surprisingly, being a Rick Dutrow trainee with Jose Ortiz. But this horse got bet hard down to 5-2, and Carlos is bringing him back pretty fast, all things considered. He's back 11, 12 days later. So I thought he'd run better here. Blinkers are going on, which should keep him a little bit more engaged early. I think that's a good thing on the inner turf course. And I'll tell you, Howard, I mean, really my biggest opinion here, and maybe this is coming from someone who singled him in the pick 5-2 back and was set up going into the last and needed him for a double last time out. I can't stomach My Sea Cottage's last 2 losses. I mean, they have been like snatch defeat from the jaws of victory type of losses both times. So other than you thinking that maybe Irad is going to really put the pedal to the metal on this horse coming out of the gate, which by the way isn't really his style. No. I think that'd be the easiest way to envision My Sea Cottage winning, because he'll seem to lose a little courage late pretty easily.
He does, but I'll tell you what, he looks like he could be loose. And if this horse wins on the lead, I mean, I'm using obviously in the pick 4 and pick 5, but I mean, it's last time he didn't have the lead, although he was comfortable. It just seems like when he gets loose, he gets a little bit more game, but 2 back going 25 and 49 and change, you couldn't get the job done. I agree. I just think there's not a lot of early speed in this race, but Pete and Paul, your thoughts on this horse or some others?
I was just the thing that jumped out to me were the 3 sort of buyers that stand out were those 3, the 87, the 85, and the 89, and they all happened at Gulfstream. So that scared me a little bit, where I was like, maybe I could take a shot against this horse and it's just going to get caught. Could finish in the money. Obviously you're going to have loose lead maybe, but I feel like I'd rather have a horse trying to run this one down.
Well, and you're going with Born a Gambler, Pete.
Yeah, I'm the only one. Nobody even has this one on the
No.
board. And this was actually my favorite horse of the sequence.
Wow.
Probably too, because it's a little bit of a price, and I'm hoping you can get a price if some of the others get bet down. I feel like this one probably definitely needs to take a step forward. But I like the fact that now under Maker, again, Nick mentioned it earlier, sometimes you'd like to see a change that's causing some improvement. I like the fact that now in the Maker barn, Manny had this horse last time and sort of sat off a hot pace. So I'm hoping if we can get a little pace here and get a similar trip to last time. 2 back, ran a decent third to Pioneering Spirit, who came back with an 85 buyer and won. And then moving back up, but it's not moving into some crazy, it's not moving way back up, and was in this company 2 back. And I think lost to a horse who I think would be favored pretty decently in this field probably. So it's 6-1. And especially if he floats up a little bit, I kind of like this horse at a price.
Okay. And Paul, real quick, you want to mention the 6? A bunch of us have Unleash the Power in the mix.
Yeah, I think the 6, especially with Louis, gets a good trip. I think he's going to be forward. He was clearly, they changed up the running style the last 2. Who knows about the 2 fairground races? They were whatever they were running on down there. Some facsimile of grass and AstroTurf and field turf or whatever. But I think the last 2 races were good. I like Louis on this type of horse. I think if the 4 goes, he could sit off. And I do agree with Nick. I think if you were writing a book on a picture book on how to find ways to lose races, you'd have to put the 4's last 2 starts in there. He found a way to lose those 2. So, and with Louis being Louis, don't be shocked if this horse just goes too. If IRAD doesn't do what IRAD typically doesn't do. So I think the 6 has a decent shot here, and I'm not going to shy away out of him being by my friend Curly.
I just was going to say, Paul, that was odds on that you were going to take this horse as a Curlin. So there was no shock there. So you beat me to the punch.
Absolutely. And there might be some moisture in the turf course. So pay attention to how that may, or obviously it's going to be pristine, but there might be some moisture. So we'll see how that plays. The stake race, the penultimate leg of the pick 4 guys, is the Schuylerville. This is for 2-year-old fillies, the girls. They're going 6 furlongs, 175,000. It's a big field, of 11. Moneyline favorite is the Pletcher train number 7, Wine on Tap, with, of course, IRAD in the irons. And we go ahead and you see our picks. And 2 of us, Nick and I, are going to go with the Pletcher. I thought Wine on Tap was more workmanlike, I would say, Nick, in my opinion, in her first start. But the one thing I like about this horse, well, there's many things I like, but the one thing I do like about this horse, and I'm sure you're going to mention it, is the extra distance, and even more distance will be her friend, it appears. And I also like the more outer post in these kind of situations.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I think that's probably worthy of mention is that a tap it at 5/8 is probably going to be that's not exactly the expectation, right? The expectation is this horse is going to get better going longer. The Dam was a 4-time winner, 3 of them at 1 mile and a 16th, 1 at 1 mile and an 1/8. So this horse is running right now because of precocity. And to put that in perspective, as far as horses go, this early in their careers, this horse looks very similar to Forte in the sense that she broke her maiden first time out with a very fast speed figure for a 2-year-old, especially for a mid-June 2-year-old, and is probably not really sure exactly what she's doing, and in all likelihood is going to continue to get better as time goes by. I've been fooled by some of these Todd Pletcher horses that look like they really need to be ridden. A lot of them are just so distance oriented that you do have to kind of get after them. And she is one that you definitely had to. I don't love the way Devil at Midnight came back and ran, who was 3rd in that debut. She came back and performed rather poorly at Belmont last Saturday. But I did think Wine on Tap finished, all things considered, and is a deserving favorite in here. I think it's tremendously interesting that both Todd Pletcher and Wayne Lucas are looking for their 7th Schuylerville, respectively, especially given their personal history. And so I was kind of Captain Obvious. I mean, I picked her over Status Seeker. I did think Status Seeker was a little interesting. I at least I remember when I made buyer figures, one of the things that Andy Beyer told me very early on was don't underestimate how much horses are going to improve from their debut to their second start, especially 2-year-olds. And the one thing I really liked about this race, and Status Seeker, who's the 3 that you're hovering over right now, she had a great trip, no doubt about it. But, these horses are not finishing like horses that are getting a 48 buyer. Right. I mean, they're running, they're pulling away from the rest of the field. She's really digging in and lengthening her stride. So I don't know if maybe this was a situation where this track was a little slow early. This was the first race. There were a couple of turf races right after it. Bottom line is, I don't want to hold a slow fig against this filly. I like that she sat comfortably and finished.
Nice gallop out too.
And gallop out was very good. Breeding suggests that more ground will be no issue. The upstart progeny have been very good early on. So I think there's a lot to like about Status Seeker, and I would give her a big shot in here.
Guys, the reasons we have Nick Tammaro, I just moved this 4 up in my book. You sold me, Nick. And you mentioned D. Wayne. I watched Saratoga Secret. I don't know. I mean, you think maybe D. Wayne will have this one improved, and she's by Arrogate out of a Fort Larned mare, so you'd think even longer. I don't know, Nick. I wasn't blown away with the 5. I think she's going to take money. I have her 3rd, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I have her 3rd as well. I'm not going to be surprised if she wins. This is obviously a big field, Schuylerville, so I think you're going to get some pace. I think there are a couple of horses in here that'll really come blasting out of there, and obviously these fillies are so lightly raced that a lot of them just know one thing, which is to go and hang around as long as they can. So I'm not going to be shocked if she is really pedal to the metal out of the gate, especially with Luis Saez. I thought her debut win was fine. It didn't exactly blow me away, but it was good enough. She's coming back on somewhat short rest, a little less than 3 weeks. So, she made sense to me if you had the ability to use 3 or more horses in the pick 5.
D. Wayne's known to bring back horses pretty quick. He's not afraid to do that, Nick.
3 weeks might be long for him.
That is. Sugar Treat to me, Paul, is absolutely fascinating. I've got this horse 2nd. You have this horse on top. Nick doesn't have this horse anywhere. I understand why. The breeding is interesting and weird. Her first race was really good. This is a total kind of mystery horse to some extent, but I think she's very dangerous here. Pete and Paul, you both obviously agree. We've all got this horse very high on our list. Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, I do like the outside post going this distance outside of
here, everyone.
Outside of the speed. I believe Escape Room came back and ran a pretty good race off that race. It's 5 furlongs on synthetic at Gulfstream, so that's really a wild card. You mentioned the breeding, Howard. The sire is by Medaglia d'Oro, and the dam is by Warfront, but Enticed and Brown Glaze as sire and dam don't seem like the combination that you're going to pay $120,000 for.
This was impressive, though, Paul, after getting studied and checked. I know it's sin. You could say whatever you want, whatever. This is impressive first time start. You don't see this going short at Gulfstream on the synthetic too often.
Yeah, and Cassie is typically not desperate to win these first time out, and I think this was kind of workmanlike, and again, Escape Room did come back to win.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think if the 7 doesn't win, Pletcher is 13% in 2-year-old dirt stakes the last 5 years. However, he's 19% when it's coming off a debut win like this horse. And obviously the Forte analogy is a good one. So, I could see the 7 winning. I can also see him being overbet. I think I'm going to be inclined to try to beat him.
Pete, you want to quickly talk about Saratoga Secret? We'll get on to the last race.
Yeah, real quick on Wine on Tap. One stat that sort of threw me a little bit was Pletcher with 2-year-old fillies in stakes races at Saratoga in the last 5 years, obviously 1 for 16 wins only, which that sort of surprised me because you always think of him as having maybe it's more the 2-year-old males where he has success, but that sort of shocked me a little bit. It's not the hugest of sample size, but 1 for Pletcher is never a thing. My thing with Saratoga Secret, you guys sort of touched on it. I think the breeding, I think she's probably going to want to go longer, but I think Saez is the type of jockey who will get her at least close enough and keep her in the mix. And I think with her breeding, if there is some hot pace up front, I feel like this one's going to be running late. And Lucas, as much as I'm not a Dwayne Lucas guy, he's been great with 2-year-olds at Saratoga at last year's meet. So if he brings that same energy back again, I think this one can run down the speed if it heats up front a bit.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. We have a ton of people watching, by the way, and please keep chatting. I know we don't have time to show a lot of comments in the chat, but thank you very much for watching. We got hundreds of people watching live right now. I know we're going to have well over 1,000, if 2,000 whatever views for this show. So thank you very much for all your support. We greatly appreciate it.
Nick,
Nick,
we got Nick. Nick
always
the thunder,
brings
right?
them out. Howard.
He brings the.
Well,
Nick brings them out.
What do you think? I mean, of course.
We injected some youth into the show finally.
Yeah,
We got some.
That's a good point. Nick, I sort of promised we'd try to get you off in an hour, so let's real quickly talk about the last race, and then we'll let you go, and we'll talk about our pick 5 construction after you leave, unless you want to stay on for a little bit longer. It's completely.
I'm in no rush.
All right, cool. All right. I mean, the All-Star game is. I hate I just not a fan. And what's even worse is the damn home run contest. But don't even get me started on that, because it was like the first one was like a speed round. It was like a pitch every 3 seconds. You don't even know where the ball lands. It was complete.
You have to put money on these things, Howard. Then everything is more interesting. Then everything.
Listen, I lose enough with the horses. I don't need to lose more damn home run.
There's Wimbledon in the day. There's All-Star games at night. There's horses in between. There's plenty of places.
Everything.
Got to end with a maiden 40, right, Nick? Maiden 40, 2 turns on the turf, mile to 16th, New York bred, nonetheless. We love the New York breds, but this field is come up a bit wanting. There's a whole bunch of AEs that you got to pay attention to, because I think some of them are live. If they get in, if it gets rained off, that's a whole other question. More line favorite here is the number 7, Iracema, for Abreu and Pratt. We haven't talked about Flavian yet on this show, who ended the Belmont meet with an absolute bang for sure. Let me go ahead and switch the banners here. There we go. And Nick, you're going to go with a very interesting horse, the number 2, Charisse, for Hennig and Lascano. And if you're a fan of Science the Lambs, perhaps you like Charisse. But anyway, what is you like about this one, Nick? Going a little price to end the card.
That, by the way, in Silence of the Lambs was Clarice. But
Clarice. I'm sorry, my bad.
I'm here to keep you in line.
I wasn't going to say anything, Nick.
No. I'm glad you did, Nick. It's one of my favorite movies. I screwed that up.
That's all right.
That movie, by the way, scared the living shit out of me when I saw that.
I imagine you enjoy fava beans and a nice Chianti as well. So who doesn't, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
only in basements, Nick. It's got to be dark in a basement for me to eat and drink that. Anyway, go ahead.
I thought the drop would probably help Charisse. I mainly didn't want to pick Arasaima, and I couldn't make enough of the case for anybody else. This horse looks a little bit like Hennig's horse from the last race on Saturday, but the difference is that horse had at least done a little bit of running. This horse did a little bit of running 2 starts ago. I mean, she just went through the motions last time out. The surprising thing is that this horse actually has a good pedigree. This is a good Gallagher stud dam side with a lot of New York bred turf horses that were competent. Obviously, Maximova was great at stake placed during her time for Christophe Clement. Sandra the Great was a winner on turf and dirt, and so there was a little bit of to like there going back a couple of generations as well. So she's just not much horse, right? I mean, she's just a regular sort of average thoroughbred, and I think Mark Hennig is doing the right thing as far as getting her into a spot where she can run better. The inside post, I think, helps a lot, and I mean, this field is this is a hungry bunch. And so I wanted to try somebody that would maybe at least offer a little bit of value.
I always have the hardest thing with the maiden special weights who are crap, who drop into claiming. I always have the hardest time trying to evaluate whether, and because they always wind up winning and you don't play them because you're like, they're so awful sometimes, and they just drop and they wind up winning. I always have a hard time with that.
Well, and you sort of wonder why, right? Do they look around and they realize, oh, these horses aren't as good as what I've been facing? It's kind of, it's strange. And it is, I mean, I was taught from early on by my father, and in the books that I read, this is the biggest class drop in racing, right? I mean, there's no bigger drop than going in for a tag. And so You just are. I know we condition ourselves to expect them to run better, and I think for the most part that's at least a safe enough assumption.
By the way, I had Hennig was 0 for 12 in this drop, maiden special weight to maiden claim on the turf in the past 3 years. 0 for 12, 2 for 12 only in the money, so he wasn't even hitting the board much. So I had looked at this horse for that reason, Nick, like that drop must do it. And then I was like, you know what? Screw it. Maybe this is one you can get past. But with the odds, I don't mind including her anyway.
Pete, we're going with, here we go again. Here's another drop, but this drop in particular, I like the drop. I also actually like the layoff in this situation because there's upside here as opposed to others. I'm not discounting Nick's pick with the 2, but not only is this one dropping, there seems to be, at least in theory, upside with this one as opposed to others that are dropping with recency, if I'm making any sense.
Yeah, and I also think there's a couple other changes. So dropped out of the maiden special to the maiden 75, actually ran decent at 30, 31 to 1.
Yeah.
Wasn't
open
great.
Company 75
yeah,
too.
Open. You're right. Good call. But didn't run great, but ran much better than she had been. Now you're in the Falcone barn where 3 for 13 wins, 10 for 13 in the money, first after the trainer switch in the past year. So has an affinity for that, picks up Saez. So there's just enough things where I'm hoping that last race can be the springboard. And then from a buyer standpoint and a time form standpoint.
Good off layoffs too, by the way.
Yes,
Sorry.
yes.
There's the layoff numbers past 5 years, 6 months or more.
And the buyers and the time forms have been improving, so maybe this one's on the upswing. Again, in a pile of crap, you're sort of reaching for the less stinky piece of crap out of it. So that's what I was going for here, pretty much.
And then we got one more, Paul. I think this horse is interesting. I've got Stone of Destiny 3rd. Actually, I'm the only one on the screen that's got this horse also in the mix. I just like the drop down. I mentioned David Donk. The 57 puts this horse squarely in the mix, and any slight improvement, this horse is very logical to me at 9-2 with Johnny V.
Yeah, I think that's noteworthy. Dave, you mentioned David, and he does well up here. And David did JK's podcast a few weeks ago, the JK +1, which is very entertaining. And David was very frank. He said he doesn't get the IRADs and the Johnny V's every day, but he also doesn't. Basically, what he said was he doesn't reach for them unless he feels he has the horse to put them on. So the fact that Johnny rode the horse last time and Johnny stays this time, and Johnny's at the point in his career where he doesn't necessarily need to be riding the maiden 40 state bred last race of the day if he wanted to get out to dinner a little earlier. So I don't know. I thought there was some things to like. It does look like one of the drops is going to win it, and there's not a ton of turf pedigree. I will say that. Other than the broodmare sire is a Lemon Drop Kid, but otherwise, as far as the horses who have run, there's not a ton. But I think the Donk Velasquez combo horse did have a little bit of trouble last time, and just looked like Johnny V didn't really pursue much after that with him.
Yeah, Paul, the one that scared me because on the sire side, 1 for 19 in turf routes, and the dam side, 1 for 14 wins in turf routes. I was like, for some reason, maybe this horse just shouldn't be routing, and that's going to be the problem. But I don't know if that'll come into play here. So I was looking to sort of toss her for that reason.
Well, I'm going to pay to see it. Pay per view. It's paid.
You can include all of them in this race, Paul. And I don't think I'd argue with any of them.
All right, let's go to our pick 4 tickets, guys. And Nick's going nice and cheap. Listen, sometimes you have strong stands, you just go for it. Nick has just a $10 ticket for everyone here. He's going 5 with 1, 4, 5. Actually, that's a comma, right? 610. That's correct, right? 1, 4, 5, 610, Nick?
Yes.
Okay, let me just throw the comma in there and make sure it don't want to confuse people. There we go. All right. 1, 4, 5, 610 with 4, 7 with 2, 7, 2 drop downs, just $10.
Yeah, I mean, this would be kind of like a baseline play for me. This would be sort of an all-A ticket, and you'd obviously punch this for, $2, $3, depending on your budget, and then you'd build off of these. So in the pick 4, I usually try to play him at a $1.50 to $2 minimum and keep it a little bit more narrow. The pick 5, I think, provides more of an opportunity to go at the minimum wager and maybe add a few more horses in here and there. So to me, I think value can be created in this sequence a couple of different ways. For me, it was singling Safaradata in the first leg and hoping, maybe to start it off with a 4-1 or 9-2 shot or so, and then just getting a live to Arasaima and my sort of silly Charisse would be enough for me. So I felt like if Safaradata could win, I'd probably be able to get a live, because I do think Wine on Tap will win, and then at least have a rooting interest in the last for me to probably end up cursing like I do invariably 20 or 30 times at Saratoga in the first couple of weeks.
I like it. Nick, we're going to let you go, let you back to your family and what else you got going on tonight. And don't leave, everyone. We're going to go through the other 3 guys, so we'll go through our pick 4. But, Nick, really appreciate you taking the time to come on and giving your expertise. And, man, if you want to follow Nick, one of the best places to do it in the money media. I'm assuming you're doing the picks for Saratoga and the Players Podcast and many other places you can find Nick. It's a very difficult meet, Nick, but when you do hit, it's almost much more gratifying than any other track, isn't it?
It is. It's very hard. It's worth the work, though. And as Paul said, it's Christmas Eve. We're ready to go. This is Horse Player Christmas when Saratoga's here and Del Mar getting going next week. So very, very exciting. Thank you so much for having me. I remember when you were just one lonely guy doing this show, Howard. So don't forget everybody that was there on your way up. But I know you won't. So I'm proud of you, and I'm always honored to be asked to come on. So. Glad to do it.
Nick. Appreciate it. Real quick, when are you going to be in Saratoga? If people are going to be going to the track, want to find you?
I'll be there Travers week, so I couldn't end up getting up there before that, but that's when I'll be there. So anybody that sees me, please come up and say hello. I'm hard to miss.
Cool. Well, I'm not going to see you at Saratoga. I know we'll see each other soon.
I will be there, Nick, and maybe we can have a beverage.
We're long overdue, my friend.
You got it.
All right, Nick Tammaro, thanks a lot. Good luck in Saratoga.
See you, Nick.
All right,
Thank
take care.
you so
Nick.
much, guys. Good luck.
All right, bye-bye. All right, guys, Nick Tammaro's awesome. I don't know how to say it another way. Just he's a better person than he is a handicapper, and he's a hell of a handicapper and morning line maker and track announcer. I mean, the guys, what he's done, he said he's going to turn 40 coming up. What he's done before the age of 40, Pete and Paul, this game is absolutely outstanding. Paul, let's go to your pick 4. Paul's pick 4, 5, 8, 9, 10 with 4, 5, 6 with 1, 7, 9, 11 with 4, 7. I gave these guys a $50 budget tonight just because it's the pick 4, $48. Quick explanation, Paul.
Yeah, the way that I'm going to try to create value is, I obviously used the favorite in the feature, whatever her name is. It's escaping me this second. Wine on Tap.
Yes.
But I'd like to. I think the way that I could get value is by beating her. I think there's at least a 50-50 shot she loses. So I want it to be 4 deep. Probably not a great idea to be only 2 deep in the last leg. I was single to a lone A in the last leg on Sunday, Howard. So while Pete needed the 12 in the contest, while you were cashing, Howard, Pete needed the 12 in the contest. I needed the 2 for 2,800, but we're happy for you.
Not really, but yeah.
No, you're not.
Sure. Yeah.
But my horse, by the way, my horse was never in it. How you were against him, it's one of those deals. I on a caveman ticket, I never would have singled them, but I would have never been alive on a caveman ticket. That 9 wins the first leg at 15-1, and now all of a sudden, you're in the market for a good ticket, but you got to get A's. But anyway,
by the way, I do want to give us both compliments. I was right. Papilio did not win. But after stumbling bad, she ran big in the Oaks. So we were both right on that
She
one.
really did. Much better than you would have expected from that far back, right?
Yes. She
How about,
ran. It was a bit of a slower.
Can we mention my guy, Dracone, very briefly?
Dracone scared
Didn't
the
he
shit
run
out of me.
great?
I did not have your horse in the pick 5, and deep in stretch scared the living crap out of me. But our appraise one, that was our top choice.
Yeah.
Appraise,
yes.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, so I'm going to I think the 4, as much as you can like a horse in that last race, I do like the 4, and I do have the 7 as the other selection. So we'll see.
I think you've got 2 very live horses there. Pete, your pick 4. I love the when you get these pick 4s, you get interesting dollar amounts. The old $40 50-cent ticket. 5, 9, 10 with 2, 5, 6, with 5, 9, 11, with 9, 10, 12. You know, it's Saratoga when you get these big numbers and a lot of double-digit numbers in your ticket. Pete, quick thoughts on your sequence here.
Yeah, first leg I went just straight chalk, unfortunately, for the top three. Second one, the 2 is sort of my best play of the day, 6-1, so I can get that one home. But regardless, I tossed the favorite in the second leg. So if I can get any of the other 3 home and that horse is the favorite, then I might be okay. In the big race, again, I tossed the favorite. I just tossed Wine on Tap in this ticket and figured the heck with it. I think there's some horses we can beat her with. And then in the last leg, the crapshoot, I actually went 3 deep, and 2 of them I got a 20-1 shot. The 9 Follow the Fed, who we didn't talk about, and the 12 at 10-1 Janny May, who looks like the speed probably will die and get run over, but I don't mind having the speed of the speed at 10-1. So if I can get one of those 2 home to close it out, then this ticket can really pay, especially if we do beat that 7 in the big race.
My ticket, I don't have any singles. I'm going 1, 5, 8, 9, 10 with 3, 4, 5, 6 with 7, 11 with 7, 10. I'm going to hold on for deep breath, going only 2 deep in the last 2 legs. I think Sugar Treat in the Schuylerville, the 11, is really, really interesting in this race. If you're trying to beat the favorite, Paul, I completely agree. I'm fascinated to see what she can do. And I think in a weird way, if the track comes up wet, that actually might be better for her based on her pedigree, because often turf horses can handle a wet surface a little bit better. I will say Cassie tried to get this horse on dirt, by the way, and the race didn't fill, Paul. We didn't talk about that, but Sugar Treat, the 11 in the Schuylerville, was not meant to go on synthetic, everyone, but a dirt race didn't fill, and they were forced to go on synthetic. So if you think this is only a turf or sin horse, Mark Cassidy does not think so. If Mark Cassidy doesn't think so, that's good enough for me. And then
if she moves up off that race, she might get better on the dirt.
She might.
Then she really fits with this field if she's just better on the dirt. I mean, the post could be a little weird, but other than that,
yeah. And I've got 7-10 on the end. I'll be praying and hope one of these drop downs can do it. Before we leave, we got to take one more minute. Pete, once again, information on the Saratoga Power Picks. I'm going to show the stream one more time. The time is to purchase now. We have 2 different opportunities that Pete's going to go through very quickly. One is you can buy just Friday, Saturday, Sunday card on a particular weekend, although you do have to wait for that until that week of the weekend races you want, or you can do a full meet Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Pete, real quick, I'll show everyone where they need to go right now. Here we go.
Yeah, if you go to our website, hhhracingpodcast.com, you can click on the banner on the top, or you can click just on our Power Picks page. And as you can see, like Howard alluded to, if he scrolls down a bit, we have 2 options. If you are already a Power Pick subscriber, a regular Power Pick subscriber, we have the individual weekend picks for you, or we have the full meet. And again, those are at a bit of a discount. And then if you're a non-Power Pick subscriber, then we have the same options, but just at a little bit of a different price. And the one thing I forgot to mention earlier, if you want, you can sign up for our regular Power Picks. If you wanted to sign up for our regular Power Picks today, Howard would get the notification that you got that. Then you can sign up for the discounted version of the Saratoga Picks, and that's all fine. As long as you sign up for the regular Power Picks first, you'll be eligible for the discount.
And we did have some people do that, by the way, guys, because they want the discount on the Saratoga Power Picks. Once again, before we close, we've got a brand new show. It's called Saratoga Today. It airs 10 to 10:30 Eastern Standard Time in the morning of each race day weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Various people will be hosting. There'll be Bettin and Boozin guys on. And we'll either be covering mainly the late pick 5 or the early pick 5. Now, this week, just to clarify for everyone, the Saratoga Today shows are going to focus on the early pick 5s, because we talk about the late pick 5s, of course, on our Wednesday and Thursday night shows with Bettin, Boozin, and our flagship. So we're going to make sure we alternate, guys. Make sure we basically have each pick 5 covered either in the morning shows or the night shows. So, Paul, we're going to have Saratoga covered like a glove all meet long. And there is a lot of info that needs to be sent out, because this, as much fun as it is, it is difficult at Saratoga.
Yeah, and I think another thing to mention, Howard, is we're always going to touch on the stakes races one
Yes.
way or the other. You may have on a Friday, you might just have one. Some weeks you'd have more, but Saturday, you guaranteed one every day pretty much. But
Yeah.
Saturdays you could have multiple. But on a Friday or a Sunday where there's just one, if it's at the end of the card, and we talk about the late pick 5 on the show, I think we're always going to find a way to devote some time to the stakes. The other thing we should mention, Howard, about Saratoga is the fact that every Saturday, I believe, except closing weekend, is on Big Fox. And we saw the impact that could have with the Belmont Stakes. I mean, apparently I made my way onto the air by accident, but I can tell you that the number of
accident, Pete.
I can tell you that the number of people that I heard from and the relative to how they follow racing, which many is not at all. There are people who saw that who in a million years would not have seen it on Fox Sports 1 or Fox Sports 2. So that the fact that Fox is all in on racing is a huge positive. There's plenty of negatives. We can talk about the negatives till the Saratoga meet's over, but that is a huge positive to open up that audience every Saturday. I just think it's phenomenal. And the fact that Saratoga today is on every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday on YouTube, also huge for viewers.
Huge. Two other quick things. I know we need to end, but there's things that we just have to get out. Paul, you got a little bit of breaking news with Cody's Wish. Do you want to talk about that very briefly?
Yeah, I mean, David Grenick wrote the story last week. Bill Mott said that he was 95 or 99% or whatever. I did happen to find out today that he was a go, and I was able to confirm it. So it's no great scoop, but it is confirmed that they are definitely targeting the Whitney with Cody's Wish.
And who's going to be there?
God willing, young Mr. Cody Dorman, his good luck charm and namesake, will be there. And, I got a chance to see it on Derby Day, when they did stop the horse on the way to the paddock, which is highly unusual. Cody was sitting trackside, and I don't know what to tell you other than it is a real thing. Hopefully I'll be able to be a little more eloquent than that in my future writing about it. But yes, the Dormans are coming to town. That's their plan. They're going to make a vacation out of it. And their first trip to Saratoga, obviously Cody's first trip to Saratoga. And as I texted Tom Law today, Howard, I sleep very little when I'm in Saratoga. That particular week this year, it might be zero between the work I'm doing for the special and the work I'm doing for the book and covering the Hall of Fame. And I can't wait to not sleep.
No, it'll be all worth it, Paul. And the last thing, Pete, about our Power Picks, if you subscribe to our regular Power Picks, you will get Saratoga once in a while. We're not excluding or deleting Saratoga from our regular Power Picks, but because we do have a special Saratoga Power Picks, our regular Power Picks in general will focus a lot on Del Mar and other tracks. So we will, for example, this weekend have Saratoga on both picks, but if you're a regular Power Pick subscriber, we're not forgetting about Saratoga. We will cover that once in a while, especially on the big days.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to miss Travers or Whitney weekend, most likely, or some of those other weekends. They'll be in there as well.
Richard Avalar, Bill Mott's never won the Whitney before. That will change, I believe, next month.
And he had never won the Met Mile.
Exactly.
I'll tell you what, though, we'll talk about it when it gets closer. Though this is going to be a real field and a real test.
No, I heard Zandon's gonna be going anyway. We got time to talk
West Willpower. I like that horse. But give Cody's Wish some targets this time. Some good targets for once, actually.
Forget the targets, Pete. Give me 8-5.
You might. I mean,
too much of a story.
Yeah, too much. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, that's true.
I probably won't bet a penny on the race, and will be as invested as can be.
Harvey Pack never bet on a favorite who's trying to do something he's never done before. Well, first time mile and eighth. Actually, did mile and eighth, but lost, right?
Second race, first. It was at Saratoga. Yeah. First race, second. He debuted at Belmont, ran a mile and eighth at Saratoga. Didn't run badly. Was second and faded to third. And obviously, you'd expect a much different running style now. But so I thought of that, Howard, because that really works. That Harvey Pack thing, and he has run a mile and an eighth.
All right, guys, we got a lot, many more shows this week. Please, we have a lot of viewers tonight, a lot of new viewers, I'm sure. Go to our YouTube channel, especially go to our website. All the information is there. For my great co-hosts, Pete Visco, Paul Halloran, and guest Nick Tammaro, this has been your host, Howard Kravitz, episode 274 of the HHH Racing Podcast. Crush your bets at Saratoga this summer. Take care, everyone. Good night.
If you have not followed his Triple H horse racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.